Good morning, Parmeshwar and Vishnu. First of all, nobody can match Vishnu when it comes to fighter flights. He is, he's the paragon of journalists who've flown fighter flights. He actually opened up that entire world for all of us in the media. So
you've made Vishnu's week, Shiv.
There is no competition, and Vishnu knows more about the Rafale, I would wager, than most people who haven't flown Rafales. So today is a very special day, and Vishnu and I had a lot of fun chatting about this last night on my show as well. It's great to see President Murmu at the Ambala base. The Ambala base is not only very important, like Vishnu was pointing out, during Operation Sindoor. It's the home of the Rafale squadron, the Golden Arrows, which conducted those incredible strikes on all of those bases. But Parmeshwar, this is also a historic base. This is a base from where India has waged almost all of its wars against Pakistan in the past as well. It's a base that was there during the World Wars. So this base has a huge amount of history all by itself. So on this hallowed ground that you see the president now, observing a guard of honor, taking a salute, in front of those beautiful aircraft that have just been part of combat operations. It's a very important, prestigious day of honor for the squadron, for the base, for all of the personnel there, because the president, after all, is the supreme commander of the armed forces. It is a singular honor to be able to host her at the base, even on a visit. And it is a soaring honor for her to actually strap into, one of their own aircraft. And I think this sort of warrants constant retelling that the Rafale squadron, barely 6 months ago, was part of a historic combat operation where they were used by India for the first time in anger. These aircraft arrived during the pandemic. I remember them arriving sometime in 2020. And this is the first time they've actually been used in combat operations just 5 years later. The president obviously will be flying in the back cockpit of a twin-seat Rafale trainer. These are combat aircraft entirely by themselves. And as Vishnu and I were discussing yesterday, the president has some time on fighters. In 2023, she flew in a Sukhoi-30 fighter in Tezpur, that was in the eastern sector. Today, she'll be flying about 250 kilometers from the Pakistan border. Ambala, after all, is a frontline airbase. Obviously, the airspace will be completely secured, etc. But this is going to be a very, very interesting to see. There are many layers to a flight of this kind. It isn't just a joyride by any stretch, because this is the president. This isn't just anybody else. This isn't some ordinary political VIP. This is literally the first citizen of the country, head of state, doing this. And therefore, the messaging goes out at many levels. It goes out domestically. It goes out to young Indians looking at the Air Force. It goes out to, Indian women. Remember, the Indian Air Force has women pilots as well. And we're wondering whether it will be a woman pilot who will be flying President Murmu. There's no confirmation on that just yet. Obviously, there's going to be messaging to Pakistan as well, because these are war instruments, Parmeshwar, that were literally just used in combat operations. So all of the many radiating messages that go out from the Ambala Air Base this morning, I think, are very, very valuable.
Indeed. Chief, also we're given to understand that President Murmu is not likely to take the controls briefly?
What happens is, when Vishnu and I both flew in our Rafales, Parmeshwar, at about, at a certain altitude where it is safe, controls are given to you just to get a sense of the aircraft. Now,
all right.
During the Su-30 flight that the president took in 2023, we do know that she was given control for a brief while. There is nothing risky or dangerous about it. It's just the pilot, having the confidence in the person that he is flying or she is flying, to be able to hand them controls for a little while, get them to move the aircraft around a little bit, do some rolls, do some loops maybe, turn the aircraft around and see how responsive it is. And I can tell you the Rafale is an incredibly responsive aircraft. These are aircraft that are basically controlled by what is called fly-by-wire. These are extremely sophisticated, advanced, flight control computers that answer very sensitively to the smallest bits of input from the flight control stick, etc., inside the cockpit. And it's a different experience, I can tell you. having flown in a Rafale and many other fighters, including India's own Tejas, a flight control computer, the manner in which, the smallest of inputs given by a pilot translates into an incredible amount of aerobatic agility in the air is truly something to experience. It's one thing to look at it from the outside. It's entirely different experiencing it from inside the cockpit. The president is 67 years old. She's by no means is she old, but she's 67 years old. So obviously the entire routine of the flight would have been tailored, keeping in view that this is the head of state, this is the president of India. So I don't imagine there will be any aggressive maneuvers. Vishnu can probably throw a little bit more light on that. But that doesn't mean there won't be some demonstration of this aircraft's agility and its ability to do some pretty interesting things in the air. It won't just be a vanilla flight. And I'm pretty sure that President Murmu will get a chance to get her hands around that stick and move the aircraft around a little bit.
Well, we'll keep a close eye on all the developments. Vishnu is also still with us, Shiv. Vishnu, as we were discussing briefly earlier, we've seen leaders
Vishnu, if I can just jump in, the Rafale that we have on our screen has the tail number RB202. That is not connected to BS001, BS021, BS022 or BS027. These were the numbers which the Pakistanis claim were Rafale jets which were shot down. Now, we know that these claims are grossly exaggerated, but be that as it may, I thought I would make a couple of observations. That's observation number one. And observation number two, I noticed the air chief in the video, in the live feed coming in from Ambala, in his flight overalls, in his G suit, with his IAF cap. You can bet your bottom dollar that he's going to be flying as well. Now, whether it's going to, he would possibly not be the person flying the president, but chances are he would be one of those flying a sortie on a Rafale as well. Whether it's front seat or rear seat, we don't know at the moment, but I expect that we would see Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh flying as well. In fact, go ahead, Shiv. In fact, I think that's him.
That's right. We don't have a confirmation on that, but Vishnu, you're right. It's quite likely that Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh, who's obviously there, we've seen him in those pictures, accompanying the president, may fly as well. It would be fantastic if it was the chief flying the president.
It is. That is the chief there.
Yeah, that's the chief.
I don't know if he's going to be flying the president. They've not announced who the pilot will be, but there is, as you know, Shiv, the chief doesn't miss an opportunity to fly. It's one thing for him to head the fourth largest air force in the world, but he likes to fly. He just flew a MiG-21 the other day, in Chandigarh, where, when it was decommissioned. He's flown the Rafale any number of times, the Tejas as well, etc. He headed the National Flight Test Center when I flew on the Tejas fighter. That's when I met him for the first time several years ago. But the fact that he's, in flight overalls and in a G suit means he's going to be flying at least one of those planes.
Air Chief Marshal Amarpreet Singh is your prototypical fighter pilot, Vishnu. A guy who never leaves a chance to get into his flight overalls, strap on a G suit, and get into that cockpit. And I think it's incredible because, given the number of senior officers who sort of give up flying as a result of higher duties and office in the Air Force, there are very few who continue to actually fly. And I think that's it's great to see the Air Chief sort of represent that incredible grit about wanting to fly at all times. And that's what the Air Force is really about. And that's right, Vishnu, you're right. That's Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh. You can see him in those pictures on your right. He was there in his fully in his flight gear, in his overalls and his G suit. There was a helmet in his hand. So he's obviously getting ready to fly as well. There is no confirmation yet over whether he's going to be flying the president or he's going to be flying in a separate plane. I think Vishnu is right. There might be a separate plane and somebody else will be flying the president. These smaller details will come out, Vishnu, I'm guessing in the next few minutes. Usually in such cases, Vishnu, if I'm not mistaken, the honor on the person flying the president is usually the commanding officer of the squadron. In this case, it would presumably be the Golden Arrow Squadron CO, the commanding officer. But there has been the possibility of this sortie being an opportunity for some different kind of messaging, maybe a woman pilot from the Air Force would fly President Murmu. There are all these possibilities. Now, we don't know for sure because for security reasons, many of the finer details have not been put out yet. So it's only in the realm of speculation. But Vishnu, let's talk for a moment about what the pre-flight briefings, the checks, the preparations for the president. Would they be quite rigorous? Would they be quite detailed as well?
I think they would be. And I think there are a couple of things, Shiv, as you know, that cannot be escaped. Before a flight, there is a proper safety briefing which was given to the president. She would be wearing flight overalls and she'd be wearing a G-suit. She'd have a helmet as well once she gets into the cockpit. And, this image on the left is what she had when she flew on a Sukhoi-30 sortie. So it'll be similar to this, but the Rafale has its own kit. When she gets on board the aircraft, she'd be strapped onto an ejection seat. That's a process that takes time. It's not something that can happen very quickly. There are many straps which need to be hooked on to the ejection seat. And then there is, of course, the helmet which she needs to wear, and there is the flow of oxygen as well from her mask. So it's not a comfortable feeling by any means. It takes a lot of time to get used to it. But these are things that she would have been briefed on. We're also joined now by Air Marshal Anil Chopra, a veteran fighter pilot, a Mirage man. The Mirage 2000 preceded, of course, by several decades, the Rafale fighter, but it comes from the same family of jets made by Dassault. Thanks very much for being with us. It is obviously symbolic, but I think it's a show of support in a sense from the government and from the president for India's Rafale fleet. Would you agree?
Thank you, Vishnu and Shiv, for having me on the show. Yes, very important day, not only symbolic, very important. She's the Supreme Commander of the Indian Armed Forces. She must lead from the front. Rafale has had a great show during Operation Sindoor recently. And we saw that the Prime Minister and Defense Minister went and took pictures with the background, and rather spoke to the personnel with the background of the S-400. Now this is the first time somebody is flying the Rafale at such high level. We are also proud that the President, she's flying a second time. She's done Su-30 earlier. And of course, the chain was started by Abdul Kalam and Pratibha Patil, who also flew fighters. You all were talking a little about the preparation that takes place. I must tell you that they would have been a team which have gone to Rashtrapati Bhavan to check out her overall size, to get her, of course, she may have had the overall of the Su-30 flight, and to check out her helmets, to give her a macro level brief for maybe half an hour to 45 minutes, some of which will again be repeated today as she prepares for flight. Yeah, you talked about the cockpit. I must tell you that Su-30 cockpit is relatively larger. Russian cockpits are a little bigger. The Rafale, Mirage, they are tight cockpits. You have to fit in. Some people used to joke that, you need to put somebody with a shoehorn inside the cockpit. That's the kind of, cockpit it is. But Rafale is a great aircraft, flies very smoothly. Both of you have already flown it. And Rafale is the number one aircraft. And we are, with the Navy ordering the Rafales, we are and the fuselage being made in India, we are hoping that 114 aircraft Rafales will be perhaps ordered. The CO should traditionally be flying with him. If the air chief is flying, he should fly normally in another aircraft. The symbolism certainly goes up. And as you rightly said, that the air chief is a hands-on man. We have seen, he's loved by the media, he's loved by the masses because he's leading from the front. He's flown the MiG-21 solo and being a test pilot. I remember when I had come back from MiG-21 upgrade because I was the team leader. The chief was AP Singh, then group captain was sent for MiG-29 upgrade as a team leader. So we have had some close work, and as Vishnu, you mentioned that he has been at the NFTC, has been flying the LCA. He flew the LCA during Tarang Shakti, with the other chiefs, couple of other chiefs flying at the same time, including foreign ones. So I think today's a great day. It's going to be interesting. I think
we've got the visuals. Air Marshal, sorry to interrupt you. We've got the visuals coming in now of the president, I believe, getting off that cart and she's already in her flight suit right now as she heads towards, she's kitted out right now. These are live images coming in from the Ambala Air Base. President Droupadi Murmu starting the process ahead of getting onto that Rafale aircraft and going on a sortie. It's a full body G suit. I can tell you it's extremely hot, and there are no two ways about it. It's not designed per se for comfort. And when it gets hot in India, then it's not particularly hot now, but it can be very uncomfortable until such time as you are in the cockpit. But you can see the president now on your screens approaching one of the Rafale aircraft. As Air Marshal Chopra mentioned, she would likely be flown by the commanding officer of the Ambala squadron. But again, it's a bit of a process, as we've said, where she needs to be strapped into the aircraft. She needs to don a helmet. The flow of oxygen has to be comfortable for her. So it's not going to be a fast process. It's going to be slow and deliberate. And I think she is standing right now, a photo opportunity next to the squadron commander, Shiv.
And may I just say that President Murmu looks absolutely terrific, in her flight suit and her overalls. She looks completely ready. She's wearing that cap, which obviously labels her as the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. She looks in excellent spirits. It's a cold day in Ambala in Haryana today, where the president will be flying. So the air is going to be nice and thick. Good day for flying. Air Marshal Chopra, you've flown from the Ambala Air Base many times, I'm sure. You've landed there, you've taken off. It's a frontline base, which has a lot of history to it as well. So take us through, what this means for the squadron itself. As the president gets ready to get into that cockpit, what would all the people of the squadron be feeling right now to watch their supreme commander be hosted in one of their own aircraft?
Shiv, I just saw the visuals and I must tell you the body language of the president is outstanding, very confident at her age, a lady, donning the overalls and the G suit. Fantastic. The way she was walking, she was so confident. Normally a person of this seniority, and I've flown some of the senior people myself, some of them have doubts. They want to know so much more about the ejection seat as if they're going to have to eject in the same flight. The kind of confidence that the president is exhibiting is absolutely making us proud. And you remember that normally in armed forces, you stop flying beyond 60, or at the best, the chief flies till 62 when he retires. And at her age, she's going to be flying. Yes. Now, as far as the base is concerned, Ambala is an old base. It has been an induction base for many, many types, including the Jaguar, the MiG-21 upgrade in the recent past, and even earlier than that, they have been, it's been an induction base. So the base is fully geared up. It's operationally very important. Must tell you that it's 200 kilometers from the border, exactly mirror image of Sargodha, which is 200 kilometers across the border on the other side. And Ambala has always been traditionally a very, very important Punjab base, along with Adhampur and Halwara, and has taken the brunt of, operation. That's why deep strike aircraft Jaguars were positioned here, and now it became the first base for Rafale. So as far as the squadron is concerned, when a person as high as the supreme commander of the country, the president, he or she is coming to fly, there is an extreme amount of excitement. There's going to be, she would have gone to the squadron, or they would have created a place for her to change. And from there, when she comes to the tarmac, there'll be technicians, there'll be airmen, there'll be technical officers who will be hanging around over there watching the entire exercise. Of course, very specially selected people would be next to her to make sure the security of the aircraft and, the preparation is done appropriately. So there is a lot of vibrance, and this vibrance is, visible on the videos that you are, showing it to us in the pictures. So there is going to be excitement, and I'm sure immediately after the flight. Now this flight, though she's wearing a G suit, I'm sure very high Gs are not going to be pulled by the squadron commander, who will perhaps be flying her. And yet, even a 2-3 G turn, at that age, it can create a significant force on the body, and therefore the G suit is very, very important. It is mandatory to fly these aircraft with the G suit because of that. Yes.
Ambassador Chopra, you've commanded a base in Punjab, frontline base, Halwara. Many people will be curious, a base that is just about 200 kilometers from the border with Pakistan as well. When the Supreme Commander flies, is there additional security that takes place in the air and on the ground? She is, after all, the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, undoubtedly, at any given time on the western border and elsewhere, there are operational readiness platforms called ORP, where there are at any given time in Punjab and Rajasthan sectors put together, there'll be at least 3 bases which will have operationally ready aircraft where the pilots will be able to take off in 2 minutes. They'll be fully kitted already in G-suits. The aircraft technicians will be sitting under the aircraft wing. The missiles will be loaded. Everything will be complete. So there is a certain amount of operational preparation, which is kept all the time. But when a president of the country or a prime minister was to fly from a base which is as near as this, more so that Op Sindoor is technically not been closed off and it is still active, though dormant for the time being. And therefore, all precautions will be taken. But, any country will be extremely foolhardy to do any mischief at this time, because if they do, the punishment will be, will be very severe. And therefore, I don't think anybody would do, but you cannot take chances. The Air Forces have to prepare. You know that in Republic Day Parade and during 15th August, we have a great air defense grid that we create around New Delhi, and similarly, this exercise would have been there. There'll be airborne fighters today. When she is flying, there'll be airborne fighters from the frontline bases like Adhampur, Halwara, and maybe Pathankot, Amritsar. Some of these bases will be active, and they'll be actively flying aircraft at that time. So I think this is the kind of precautions will be taken. Of course, the ground security will be looked after appropriately, which I don't need to cover. Also, I must mention that, the approach path and the takeoff paths, there'll be additional security, because the president is flying, and when she takes off, its aircraft is still relatively low, and therefore the funnels, the approach and takeoff funnels are also covered, yes.
All right, Air Marshal, we've spoken about President Murmu's forthcoming flight on the Rafale. Could you tell us a little bit about the role of the Rafale in Op Sindoor?
Yeah, you see, as we all know, that the initial mission was done by Rafale, had the Scalp missiles, but the biggest thing that it did was it had the Spectra electronic warfare suite. As we get more and more analysis, we know that not only it protected itself, it also protected the Su-30s and some of the other aircraft, because it has capability to jam, both airborne and ground-based systems. For some time, initially, and even today, Pakistanis continue to create a narrative that, X number of Rafales have been shot down in the first few hours of the Op Sindoor, but we all know that there's not a single aircraft been shot, no pictures have been shown. The aircraft numbers are known to us now, which the Pakistanis have been saying these are actually flying in an exercise right now abroad. So therefore, the aircraft itself has phenomenal capability. It has the Meteor missiles. Yes, there's been a lot of discussion on whether PL-15E or the original PL-15 has been used. A couple of them have been found. At least around 15, I'm told, have been captured in some forms. At least 3 of them are in full shape. Apparently, they were fired outside range and they never could finally explode, but were found on the ground. So we know that the Rafale has done an outstanding job. It's important. Some people say that why do you need fighter aircraft? Why not continue to use BrahMos and from the ground, or use some other cruise missiles? The fighter aircraft gives you range, a phenomenal amount of range the fighter gets. The fighters can go deeper. Of course, in this particular case, we didn't go very much deeper. But in the long run, the fighter can go much deeper, especially the stealthy ones will go much deeper. So Rafale has played a great role. Reliability of Rafale is very high. It's got some of the best and most reliable engines, the M88, 2 of them. And the entire package is so good that can you imagine that the French have chosen to continue with a
Air Marshal, I'm interrupting you for half a second. And the reason I'm doing that is because we've got President Murmu inside the cockpit of the Rafale right now. She is being strapped in as we speak. So that flight is scheduled to take place, approximately at 11:30. I would suggest that given, what we are seeing now, it might take place a little bit before that. We're seeing the squadron commander presumably in the front cockpit of the Rafale as well. So this is a process that's, taking place relatively quickly. It's not easy to even get into a fighter cockpit. You have to stand on the ejection seat first. Then one by one, you put your legs down. You can only hold on to certain areas to gain support. So she did that really efficiently, effectively. She's obviously told where she can stand, where she couldn't stand. So she's being strapped in right now. The pilot in front, presumably the commanding officer of the squadron, is strapping in as well. Shiv, it's moving fairly smoothly, and I would suggest that from President Murmu, it comes from somebody who's done this before, which is very much the case.
Definitely, this is going to be familiar to her because 2023 is when she was at the Tezpur Air Force Station, and I remember that so clearly when she flew in that Sukhoi-30, a much larger aircraft. A larger cockpit, as Air Marshal Chopra said. It's a much more snug and cozy cockpit, if I can use that word, for the Rafale, but an incredible piece of technology. Once inside the cockpit, what's happening right now is also a very interesting few minutes, Vishnu and Air Marshal Chopra, and I would like to talk about that for just a minute. Because once the pilot is in the front seat and you've got the president at the back, there's a separate briefing that takes place here as well. There's a cockpit briefing, there's a systems briefing where the president will be fully briefed about, what she's looking at in front of her. Of course, there is a safety protocol that is given to her as well. But there is also a basic briefing given to what all she's looking at, because each cockpit is different. Fighter aircraft are largely the same. And veteran pilots like Air Marshal Chopra can jump into any cockpit, and with a little bit of familiarization and conversion training, they can fly any fighter plane in the world. But to the civilian eyes, each cockpit is vastly different. They do the same thing, but they are very different. The systems are different. And therefore, at this time, in these live pictures, what the president is receiving while seated in that back cockpit of that Rafale is getting a briefing from the commanding officer, as well as the technicians and others, about safety features, what she needs to do, what she's looking at, the kind of information that's going to be coming to her, the talkback system where she'll be able to hear the pilot who's flying her, what certain coded messages may actually mean. All of these protocols will be fed directly to the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces. And I'm just wondering what an incredible moment this is. This is citizen number one of the country seated in the back seat of an aircraft type that just 6 months ago was part of a mini war with Pakistan, conducted incredible precision strike operations at standoff distances. And she's about to take off in the same aircraft type from the same airbase from where they operated. The symbolism is exploding. It's a great day for flying. Seems to be pretty grey, but that's quite standard for these early winter months. The Ambala base, like I said, very, very honored to be hosting the president. And I think it's all systems go, Vishnu.
Yeah, it does seem to be all systems go. And Shiv, just to continue from what you were saying, and Air Marshal Chopra would bear me out on this, the first thing I would suggest they do is they check to see if the RT is functional. In other words, the conversation flow between the pilot in the front and the president in the rear cockpit is fluid. It's proper. That the Vox level, in other words, the sound level, which in the case of the Rafale, if memory serves me right, is a small sort of dial on the left, is at the right level where the president is comfortable. And then
Vishnu, sorry to interrupt you for just a moment. This is a lovely historic image. Look at this. You've got the Rafales there. And is that a gnat up there, Vishnu? You can correct me if I'm wrong. That's a gnat up there.
It is a gnat.
Yeah. It's a gnat reflecting the history of the Ambala base. This is an aircraft that did incredibly well during the 1965 and the 1971 wars. Small little British fighter aircraft, incredibly nimble, in many ways a game changer. And I love that the cameraman was able to zoom out and show us the little moment. Just a reminder. Go ahead, Vishnu.
But, Shiv, I mean, the president is ready to rock and roll, it seems. I mean, it's all done. The ladder has come off. You'll see the the canopy going down soon. The oxygen flow would be on. We don't have audio right now, but the engine start sequence will be commencing shortly. All the plugs will be taken out, and then they'd be ready to go. I mean, at this stage, it's they're primed and set. In as much as I said that it's a difficult process to actually strap in, it didn't take her very much time now, did it? And that's and then she was ready for it. She knew what to expect. She'd obviously been briefed. And now the pilot would be going through his systems to check the status of his engines, the status of his electricals, the fuel flow into the engines. And let me not pretend to sound like a pilot. Let me bring in Air Marshal Chopra. So, sir, could you be the pilot that you are and tell us what's happening now?
Yeah, I must tell you, Vishnu, that there are three types of people who interacted. Two of them have got down. The first one was the SCW, the guys who helped us strap. These are technicians. They are wearing those yellow jackets. These are the guys who help you to secure you, to make sure that the safety pin of the ejection seat is out, you're strapped in correctly, and that your leg straps are in place. So they are technicians. Then there's a pilot from the squadron, normally a senior pilot, who will tell in the cockpit some important switches that you don't please touch, or this is the undercarriage lever, the front guy will handle it, or this is some button which has some the ejection seat operation, or will activate the canopy or something like that. So that pilot would have done the briefing. And the third, as you said rightly, is once the radio is connected, the intercom, there is an intercom. So she would have been told how the intercom will function between the two. The pilot will, in the front cockpit, the pilot in command, he will brief her, and whatever checks he's doing, he will call up those checks to her on the intercom so that she understands what's going on in the cockpit. The idea is to make it an operationally pleasurable experience for the Supreme Commander to be taking such a flight, and she must understand. And when she goes back after the flight, she will really know what the military aviation is all about. And therefore, the pilot will be telling, and of course, he will go through the starting procedure and, taxing. And at every stage, he will be updating the president about what's going on, what is there to see, what is on the left. He'll perhaps even show some places on the way within the Ambala airfield to say, look at the left, this is the squadron, our squadron headquarters, or this is where the other squadron is operating from, etc., etc. So like that, it's a the whole exercise made a pleasurable operational experience for the president when the president will sit. And also he will show the map on the screen display so that she can see, okay, if we are here, after takeoff, we'll be going to point Bravo or whatever the waypoint he's going to go. And then he also perhaps put on the radar to say, see, this is how the radar is going to be. Of course, he will show the radar in much greater detail in the air, to familiarize her with especially some of these nav attack, systems. Also, I do not know what the sortie profile is, but a typically operational sortie profile is made to show her that, this is the way we attack, this is the way we will, be able to take off, launch an air to a missile or something. So she will be briefed all this in the air through, she can see it on the screen, on the multifunctional display screen, so that, she is that much educated. He'll be shown how much of fuel is left in the cockpit, where is it written, what is the distances to different points from here to Delhi, or what is the distance from here to Lahore. She will be shown all that on the map. So it will be made, very, very interesting. Ambala is close to the hills. They might take the flight a little towards the hills to show her the mountain peaks, which are already having snow at this time. These are very typical things, because when we used to fly senior officers, when we were young in the squadron, when I was a flight commander, then some of the generals or army chief or somebody would come, then we would fly them, and this is the kind of way we would show them. Of course, in this case, the president would have been briefed about all this, yes.
I love President Murmu in her aviators and her flight suit. She's looking absolutely cracker and ready for that flight. She's in the aircraft right now. The pictures on the left side of the screen are from a little earlier, just before she was taken into the aircraft. She's in the aircraft right now. The pre-flight checks have been done. Very shortly, the canopy will be closed. Our viewers would have noticed that there are two aircraft, there are two Rafales that have been prepared. So obviously President Murmu is flying in one of them with the commanding officer of the Golden Arrow Squadron. The other Rafale to the right of it, which you can't see in these pictures, but when the camera zooms out, you can see it, as Vishnu correctly said, is the one in which the air chief is presumably flying as well, with another officer. So there are two Rafales that are going to be in the air. Hopefully, this will mean that there are going to be some quality air-to-air visuals as well, Vishnu. You and I, the eternal TV journalists, are going to be hoping for some lovely air-to-air imagery of the Supreme Commander in the air as well. So that's going to be something to very much look forward to. The next step now is, after this briefing, is the canopies will be closed. You'll have your engine checks, and then the aircraft will taxi out for a very quick takeoff. Air Marshal Chopra, coming back to, since you have flown from Ambala and you know the geography of this base and this sector in general, it's a frontline base. Like I said, it's close to the Pakistan border. You said it mirrors Sargodha. No one needs reminding that Sargodha is a base that India has hit in nearly all its wars, including in Operation Sindoor. And it stands to reason that nobody's going to try any mischief, but obviously Pakistan will be watching this as well very closely. India has made no secret of it. This was publicly announced that this flight would be taking place yesterday. But when a flight like this takes place, when President Murmu is in the air, what kind of airspace restrictions would there be? The aircraft, would be flying in a designated piece of sky, I'm assuming. So how is all of that planned out? How is that coordinated?
Yeah, Shiv, let me first tell you that the second aircraft which is parked, we all can see it, is also the standby aircraft. And just, though the reliability of the Rafale is very high, 99.7% is the known figure. But if the aircraft had to have some last minute glitch for some reason, then the standby aircraft will be used by the president. Now, who will be flying in the standby aircraft today, we will know in a short while. I'm not very clear myself whether the chief himself is flying or not. But the point that you are making is that, when the president will be flying in a particular designated sector, which would have been earmarked, the profile would have been decided by the commanding officer and in consultation with the base commander, that area will be kept free. Certainly our aircraft will not be there. There will be no airliners in that sector. The sector will be chosen in such a way that there is no civil traffic, maybe to show the president something on the radar picture. They will have another aircraft which will be in the air, maybe from a different base, where the Rafale will lock on at long range, show it to the president as to what is the kind of distance this can be achieved. As far as securing is concerned, that it's public information. The president is flying, has been known for the last 2 days now. And therefore, the whole world knows it. I mean, it's in media. So, therefore, as I said earlier, there is a little heightened security, more aircraft on operational readiness platforms, some aircraft in the air, sanitization of airspace in the area where she will be flying, etc. These actions surely will be taken. That will be applicable to the president, prime minister, even the defense minister when he flew. Mind you, I must also say that the only two people who have flown the single-seater aircraft are the president, prime minister Modi, and the Raksha Mantri when they flew the LCA. So that is a very big thing. When the prime minister flew the LCA single-seat aircraft, India-made aircraft, it had a very different and connotation altogether. So today's sortie is going to be very interesting. You people must track what all did they do. What is the debrief is very, very important to know. What did the president get to be showcased? They could perhaps be simulating. It's possible to simulate scalp or hammer, or even some electronic warfare. Some simulated threats could be shown to her on the screen in the cockpit. So there are a lot of things that she can be shown in this sortie. Rafale has a reasonable amount of range. I'm not sure that air-to-air refueling is planned for this sortie to demonstrate, because that itself is a great demonstration. Some of us have sat in the Rafale and done air-to-air refueling, and it's a different experience altogether. So what all is being planned in this mission, we will know after they come back, and I'm sure there'll be a press release about what all they did. And as far as airborne pictures are concerned, of course, the second aircraft will do some very close-up pictures. She can be waving from the cockpit. You will get to see, her in very close formation. The other aircraft can fly, but there'll be perhaps a UAV, which will be taking pictures right from the takeoff to flight, and will give us another perspective altogether, like we do for firepower demonstrations. So there are a lot of things that would have been packed into this whole profile, and some of these videos will subsequently be at some point, if not live, will be released to the media, and that will be absolutely fantastic. Yes.
Air Marshal, could you describe, for the benefit of our viewers, in simple terms, the man-machine interface on the Rafale? Because whenever one talks about the aircraft, one talks about its performance, its maneuverability, its weapons, but ultimately it's how it all comes together as a system through this man-machine interface, which makes it a generation ahead of most other fighters that we operate.
The man-machine interface has gone through a huge change. And Vishnu, as you rightly said, that perhaps we're all the time concentrating on the Mach number, the G, and the weapon that they're carrying. We are all concentrating there. But to do all that successfully, man-machine interface is most important. You all remember that 40 years back, Mirage F-16, hot as controls, hands on throttle and stick. That means pilot, when he's engaged in combat or carrying out any combat maneuvers, he doesn't have to leave his hand to go to operate a switch, because all the relevant switches are on throttle and stick. Certainly the operational switches, queuing of the radar, firing of the missile, selecting of a weapon, all are in your hand and stick. Also, this is important because if you're doing that during combat and pulling high G, it's not possible for you to release your hand from the stick and throttle and go for a switch. So therefore, this hottest. The other thing is the screens. Single screen, large plasma displays, touch screen where you can choose everything. I can all of a sudden be looking at the engine, I could be looking at the fuel system, hydraulics, or actually be looking at the navigation or my, radar warning receiver, or I'm looking at the, operational situational awareness picture. So what all you can see in the screen. The third interface is your helmet. Now we have helmet mounted sights. We all made India's specific modification to Rafale. One of them was the integration of the Israeli dash helmet on this. There was initial reluctance by the French to allow that to happen. But that helmet mounted sight is possible that you just point your head in that direction and your radar and missile all slew in that direction where the aiming index on the helmet screen is there. So that has another area, mind you, to have a helmet in an aircraft where there's an ejection seat and having so many things, you have to make sure it's light, it tightly fits. Every pilot's head is mapped, and thereafter a helmet is created around it. Because if he has to use it for slewing the weapons and radar, the helmet must be very, very correctly fitting on your head. So there are these interfaces. Of course, you have a big interface, head-up display itself, which is right in front, takeoff and landing, for weapon firing, for radar situation. So everything is, there. And the next stage is, of course, you have not in Rafale, but one day you will have the displays on the screen itself. There is also you can give voice commands. That is already here in Rafale, and in all future aircraft will be digital voice input that you will be able to give DVI, which will be able to order. So I can say, okay, armament switch on. I don't even have to press a button, and the armament switch will come on its own. The next step is a thought.
Already, Marshal, again, just for the benefit of our viewers, jumping in over here because the canopy is down, the engines will be starting up now, and we expect the President of India to sortie out momentarily in her Rafale sortie at the Ambala Air Base, not too far from Delhi, in a little while from now. The expected takeoff is closer to about 11:30, give or take a few minutes. But she's been comfortably strapped in, and the aircraft seems to be fine. So they would, taxi off. It will be a fairly quick process after this. But carry on, Air Marshal, with what you were saying.
Yeah, so we were talking about the human interface, machine interface (HMI), which is a very important technology, allowing it. We also know there's a greater amount of autonomy that's going to take place with AI and ML coming in. Not only the HMI is the human, machine interface is not only going to give you data, but is also going to help you decision making. It will give you inputs that will allow you to take, he'll urge you to take a decision and he'll suggest you a decision. Right? That kind of an interface is going to come up. So therefore, there are great times unfolding. We are at a four and a half generation stage. The world is moved. A large number of 20 air forces have a 5th generation aircraft. 6th generation aircraft are flying, a couple of them. And, the technologies are known. On paper, even the 7th generation technologies have come up. So I think there is an exciting time for aviation. I must tell you that the fighter pilot is secure in the cockpit. Drones may come, missiles may happen. But for next 100 years, the fighter aircraft with the man in the machine are very much present here. So there is, action still there. And the naysayers have to think again, yes.
Spoken like a true fighter pilot, and I'm so glad you said it, sir, because, this is a big debate out there about whether the human in the cockpit will become redundant in the near future. And it's good to hear someone like you categorically say that the naysayers are wrong. The human will always be man and woman. We've got women pilots in the Air Force as well. Yes. The human in the cockpit is going to be absolutely, a permanent fixture. And we have a very important human in the cockpit right now in these live pictures. As Vishnu said, the canopy is closed and President Murmu is in the rear cockpit of this Rafale twin-seat trainer. Remember, a trainer doesn't mean it's not a combat aircraft. This is a full-fledged combat aircraft capable of executing all weaponry deployment, all airstrikes, all air-to-air missions, everything that a normal single-seat Rafale can do. This is obviously used for training of younger pilots as well, in addition to actual combat operations. So that's the one in which the president is going to be flying in. The engines are on. You can see the control surfaces, including the canard foreplanes. Those are the small little mini wings you see to the right and left of the cockpit itself. That provides the Rafale with an incredible amount of additional agility in the air. You can see the tail twitching as well. This is the pilot testing all of the control surfaces at this point of time. Those are the control surfaces that you see, the rudders, etc., which provide the incredible amount of aerobatic nimbleness of this aircraft once it goes into the air. Now, once the aircraft takes off and disappears into the skies, you won't be able to see it close up until we get those air-to-air pictures a little later. But Vishnu, what's going on right now? All the control surfaces twitching, everything being tested, the actuators, the hydraulics, the flight control system, everything being given one final check before the aircraft pushes forward, brakes out, and the aircraft moves on.
Chief, the cost of the helmet which the president might be wearing is close to $500,000.
Wow.
There are a couple of different helmets which the IF uses for its Rafale fleet. This would be the less expensive of the two helmets. The other one is a very special helmet. It's a helmet-mounted sight. It's from Elbit in Israel. It's called the Dash series of helmet, which projects a great deal of information on the visor for the pilot. And as I say that, you can see the president's Rafale now beginning to sortie out. There's a brake test which has just been done over there, and shortly after that, they'll continue to sortie out. To taxi out before they get ready for that flight of President Droupadi Murmu on the Rafale fighter. So it'll be a short taxi out. You can see the president waving over there. And that's the first of, I believe, 2 aircraft. The second one possibly with the air chief in it. You can see the air chief's, you can see the president's a Boeing 737 in the background. That's the VIP aircraft that she likely arrived in Ambala in. And this, of course, is one of the 2 primary air bases of the Rafale, the other one being Hashimara in Bengal. which I visited a couple of years back. But it's the Ambala squadron of the Rafales, which was the first Rafale squadron formed. President Droupadi Murmu in the rear seat of that twin-seat Rafale fighter. She's taxiing to the runway now, and she should be taking off in just a couple of moments from now. Shiv.
Vishnu, I just noticed that the president's Rafale has a supersonic drop tank on it. Can you talk us through that? Why does the president's Rafale have a supersonic drop tank on it? I imagine additional fuel for redundancy and in case an aircraft needs to divert to another place. But it's that particular one is a supersonic drop tank, which is standard on the Rafale as well. Take us through that.
I think it's just,
so our viewers can understand.
I think it's just range extension. You're quite right. The tank under the fuselage of the Rafale is a supersonic drop tank, and that enables the aircraft to actually extend its range. I would presume with the addition of that tank, they'd be looking at a sortie of close to an hour or so. So that's essentially for extended range. I'm not sure whether the president would necessarily fly a supersonic profile. When you're inside the cockpit, you don't really know the difference between flying subsonic and supersonic, other than when you take a look at the instruments, which actually indicate to you whether you've crossed Mach. But that is the loadout, and it is being done for range. You can see the two jets now, one of them with President Droupadi Murmu, now moving to the runway at Ambala. It's Ambala, of course, as we mentioned all along, is a historic squadron of the historic airbase of the Indian Air Force. In more recent times, they've operated Jaguar fighter aircraft as well. In the past, we've seen a host of Indian Air Force fighter aircraft operate from Ambala. But the first of the two Rafale fighters, which is the one in which President Droupadi Murmu is in the rear seat, is now moving on the taxiway and will shortly be on the runway. Shiv.
And might I just add, Vishnu, that the grey, low visibility conditions here in Haryana are very much a reminder of pollution levels in these early winter months. Haryana and Punjab, two of the biggest offenders when it comes to pollutants in northern Indian air. But I don't want that to spoil the glory of these amazing images, because it is a beautiful occasion. The president in her Rafale now moving towards the end of the runway from where that takeoff roll will be taking place. Okay, we've got some sound coming in. I think we've got some sound coming in. Let's listen. Yeah. Unfortunately, a little bit of low visibility conditions. It could have been a crisper day, but we've got to fight with what we've got. That's the president's Rafale. There are two Rafales, as you can see. They're both taxiing towards the end of the runway. So, as Vishnu and I both reported, there will be two Rafales in the air. You can hear some additional audio coming in from the ground as well. You can see the hardened aircraft shelters and hangars as well. This is a frontline airbase after all, so these are concretized, reinforced hangars in which the aircraft are parked, because the Ambala Air Base is a frontline base not very far from the Pakistan border, and therefore all protections are provided to the aircraft at the squadron. And those are the semicircular structures that you see the Rafale taxiing past at this point of time. They will be moving towards the end of the runway and then getting fully prepared once they receive clearance for that big takeoff, one after the other. Both those Rafales will get into the air. They'll be flying flight profile, as Vishnu said, for about an hour, presumably, given that the aircraft seem to be kitted out for a degree of range. A certain sector has already been earmarked for this flight, and there will be a full briefing after the president touches back down over what exactly happened in the air. We can safely predict that there will be an entire profile for the president to enjoy in the air. She'll get to see the aircraft in all its glory. There will very unlikely be any aggressive maneuvers, but the president will be given a chance to see what the Rafale can do for sure. It is an opportunity for the president to get a very up-close view of an aircraft that has literally fired weapons during Operation Sindoor less than 6 months ago. So this is a valuable, very valuable and prestigious honor for the Golden Arrows Squadron in Ambala in Haryana, where this flight is also...
Shiv, if you'll allow me, let me tell you...
Yes, please, sir.
Visibility bit, since this is an issue right now. You can see visibility is very common. I have operated from Ambala many times in Mirage 2000. Visibility is an issue, but now, you know, most of the airfields in India, the top line airfields certainly have been upgraded with modern airfield lighting and aids, navigation and approach aids. So this base has got everything. It's got a PAR, which is a precision approach radar. There is also the ILS. There is a TACAN, there is the radars which are all over. So therefore, missions can be brought back, much larger packages can be brought back at short notice, very close, flying with each other in such visibilities. And therefore, President Murmu's aircraft will be absolutely under control. The extra drop tank is obviously to give her a little more fuel so that she can enjoy the mission. They will also take her supersonic, and as Vishnu mentioned, that the transition from subsonic to supersonic in these modern aircraft, you don't even come to know in the cockpit. The transition extremely smooth, because fly-by-wire also make sure that there are no kinks in this transition. So visibility, yes, is an issue, but that's the way we have to learn to fight in Punjab and Haryana bases. And therefore, the Indian Air Force is fully catered for. Same is the case across the border, because the visibility also is similar in Pakistan's Punjab, and therefore we have to go and strike some of these places in such poor visibility. And therefore, when the aircraft comes, there will be aligned with the runway on approach. The height, etc., will be given. You will have enough aids for the aircraft to be able to land in very poor visibility. But the visibility today, I can see from here, your camera is showing air traffic control, which is quite far. So the visibility is not that bad, though it is bad, yes. So another thing you mentioned about the trainer, yeah, these are now world over. We stopped calling them trainers. We call them two-seaters because they have full operational capabilities, as you mentioned. In fact, in many cases, the rear seat is occupied by the WSO, Weapon Systems Operator, as is the case in Sukhoi-30 and also in Rafale, who could take on part of the load of handling the weapons, the radar, and physically firing the weapons, especially when it comes to laser weapons. The workload increases in the cockpit. So all that has been catered for. As you add more capabilities into fighter aeroplanes, you have to create means for the load, the cockpit workload, to be balanced and to be reduced. Even in many fifth generation aircraft, they are single cockpits, and yet the workload has been managed through automation and various other support systems that are built. Yes, you're right. We are not going to be able to see the takeoff unless they had positioned some, Doordarshan camera next to the runway. I don't know. We should have given feed.
We'll have to wait there, Marshal, and see what happens. We should hopefully get a sight of the takeoff, but I think it is unfortunately quite disappointing to see the conditions out there. The visibility seems okay, but it's overcast, and I dare say that the Tipness Grey scheme of the Indian Air Force's camouflage sort of blends in perfectly with with the environment. There was a lot of criticism of the then Air Chief Marshal Tipness when he said that there needs to be a standardized camouflage of the Indian Air Force. That's because our IAF jets had fantastic camouflage schemes, none more beautiful than the Mirage 2000, which Air Marshal Chopra flew. That, of course, still has that light blue scheme. But all the other jets have this grey color. There was a conversation at one stage on whether the Rafales would or should replicate that light blue camouflage scheme of the Mirage 2000. But no, they decided they'd continue with grey. But I think there's logic in that. And I think Air Chief Marshal Tippis was entirely correct. Because if you look at the conditions in the subcontinent, then chances are we may not be able to see much of a takeoff because the aircraft goes into stealth mode with that environment and its colors.
Yeah. I must tell you, grey, when it was being chosen, there was a lot of discussion within the Air Force, and I was part of that discussion. And I tell you, I think it was a good decision. Whether it's mist and fog, or whether even when you fly over a jungle, dark jungle, or you fly over desert, and these are the 3-4 terrains and of course over the sea, these are some of the types of terrains you have to cater for. And I think this is one color which matte grey, it really merges with the background and makes it very difficult, especially when we people fly in formation. Mirages used to be AD escorts to some other type of aircraft. Keeping a track of your own formation sometimes became difficult because, the grey color was, matching into that haze, early morning haze, would be difficult to see the aircraft. So I think it was a good decision. But yeah, we were waiting for seeing the takeoff in the runway, but I'm not sure if we are going to see it. And Shiv and Vishnu, I unfortunately have to leave because of another important engagement. And it was great interacting with both of you, and always a pleasure to be with NDTV. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Air Marshal Chopra. It's always a joy and always a pleasure to get someone who's a veteran and someone who's actually been in the cockpit, flying from the Ambala base, doing this kind of thing, talking us and our viewers through this incredible thing. Have a great day, sir. We'll see you maybe a little later. But,
all right, Shiv, the takeoff run, the first jet. Whizzed past us. It sort of merged into the backdrop, unfortunately, given the weather conditions, suboptimal. But I think it's the very first jet, and I think by now it would be already airborne. It doesn't take more than a few seconds for that Rafale to be airborne. Now, whether we get additional footage from a different camera angle or not, we're going to have to wait and see. But it has merged seamlessly into the backdrop. There you have it. That's one of the two jets. That could well be the second one. Whether it's the first or second, we don't know. But it is President Murmu who has taken off in that Rafale fighter from Ambala Air Base. You saw the afterburner light up for the takeoff, and then the pilot come off the afterburner as the aircraft continued to gain altitude, and the profile and the sortie of the President is now well underway. There are two aircraft, and I can confirm that the Air Chief is in the second aircraft. Unclear if he's in the front seat or in the rear seat. But the Air Chief, the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, is in the second Rafale, and the two jets would presumably formate at a certain stage as the President gets an idea of what it's like to be on the Rafale aircraft. These images coming in from the Ambala Air Base, it's unlikely that there would be air-to-air visuals coming in on a live basis, but presumably there would be something later on which comes. This is one of the two aircraft which is on the tarmac, possibly the second one. Unclear if it's the first or the second. We can confirm that one of the two jets is taken off. I believe that's the one with the President on board it. Whether this is a replay of that takeoff or whether it's the second jet which is about to take off, that's something we have to wait. The Rafale comes in a single-seat variant, it comes in a twin-seat variant. Both of the aircraft operating today are the twin-seat variant of the Rafale. These are they're not quite. At one level they can be used for training operations, but at another level these are fully capable of waging war and have, in fact, waged war. Presumably, some of these were used even during Operation Sindoor, the Rafale platform, where the single-seat or twin-seat was used. So that's one of the Rafales taking off right now, and that's all it took, and that's it. A few seconds, and it's in the air. It's not a Boeing 747 taking off. It's a fighter jet, and a pretty nimble one at that. Ship.
Incredible, very, very short takeoff, full afterburners. You could see the orange glow of the reheat of the two M88 engines as the aircraft blasted off. Pity that the visibility conditions are so low, but I'm pretty sure, Vishnu, that a little later, the Air Force will be releasing some air-to-air imagery. Now, very quickly after taking off, those aircraft would have gained altitude, hopefully, to get over this a smog cloud over the Ambala base, where the skies are a
Shiv, I've
little
got some
blue.
news for you. Shiv,
Yes.
the group captain Amit Gehani is the pilot flying the president. He's also commanding officer of the Golden Arrows.
That's right. So as we both correctly reported, Vishnu, it's the commanding officer who is flying President Murmu in that lead Rafale. And the chief of the air staff, Air Chief Marshal A.P. Singh, is in the second Rafale that we've also seen taking off. So they're both in the air right now, and the aircraft will be gaining altitude very, very rapidly. The Rafale is capable of climbing at a very impressive rate. So it's going to be able to clear some of this low visibility. It's a little clearer already, Vishnu, I can see. With the aircraft having taken off, it's already a little clearer on the ground here at the Ambala Air Base. The aircraft will be in the air for about an hour. We saw that drop tank on the aircraft, which seems to indicate that it's going to be a bit of a leisurely flight, maybe 50 to 60 minutes, where the president will be, as we speak, in the air over Ambala, but likely away from it, because Ambala is a big city in Haryana. So the aircraft will be flown with the president to to a sector which has been designated as well, which is not a built-up area, and there are vast flying areas in Punjab and Haryana where this will presumably be taking place before the president lands back in Ambala in about an hour from now. So as we speak, very exciting things taking place in the air over the western sector, with the Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces on board that Rafale. I'm gonna replay some of those pictures for our viewers right now of that dramatic takeoff of the Rafale just a couple of minutes ago. There you have it. Those are the pictures of the Rafales taxiing just a few minutes ago towards their takeoff positions, and we'll have that beautiful clip that is undoubtedly going to be the money shot of today, as it were, of the president taking off in her Rafale. We saw her waving, Vishnu, from that cockpit a moment ago, just as you and I did when we flew in those Rafales over a decade ago. And I, for one, cannot wait to see the air-to-air imagery, because this is going to be very, very interesting. And as Air Marshal Chopra said before he left, I think there's going to be a lot of simulated attack action demonstrated to the president in the air. She's going to be given a sense of what exactly the entire weapon deployment routine looks like, without obviously actually deploying any weapons, because these aircraft are flying without weapons. It's going to be a fascinating 1 hour for the president on board. She has flown in the Su-30, the Sukhoi-30 before this. But I can tell you, Vishnu's flown 15 fighters. I've flown 6 or 7 myself. Each and every fighter sortie is a different and very singular and unique experience all by itself. You connect with the pilot, you connect with the aircraft. The physical and emotional experience of being, in an instrument of war and such incredible engineering is an experience all by itself. And I think it is a unique honor that the Group Captain Amit Gehani, the commanding officer of the Golden Arrow Squadron, as Vishnu is reporting first, gets the honor to fly the president of the country in that Rafale. So the aircraft are in the air right now, Vishnu, and I think it's going to be about an hour before they land back again. And that's when the second money shot perhaps will be there, when President Murmu emerges from her aircraft, and we'll get to hear from her for the first time about that flight.
Also, Shiv, Group Captain Amit Gehani, the commanding officer of the Rafale squadron in Ambala, was recently honored with the unit citation for his squadron, the number 7 squadron's outstanding mission performance on Indian Air Force Day. The 17th squadron is the Golden Arrows. That's the squadron in whose Rafale the president, Droupadi Murmu, is flying right now. They received this prestigious unit citation for exemplary performance during Operation Sindoor. And I think for the benefit of our viewers, let's sort of spell that out. Let's explain what exactly that means. This was the squadron which was involved in hitting Pakistan hard. The Rafales were engaged with their Scalp missiles And despite my badgering them day after day on what aircraft used what missile to hit what target, the Air Force would not and will not reveal that information. But it is a fact that you've got unit citations of the squadron. It is a fact that the primary ground attack missile is the Scalp. It is a fact that this aircraft was used, and therefore we can safely surmise that the hits on Bholadi, the hits on Jacobabad, on some on Noor Khan, on Sakar, some of the other Pakistani air bases, were struck by this particular squadron. If you actually look at some of the gallantry award winners themselves, and again, the Air Force or the government refuses to identify which squadron the pilots were flying. There was a lot of detail over there, which if you follow aviation as Shiv and I do, then you would know what was happening. A lot of these pilots were flying into harm's way. They had encountered the launch of air-to-air missiles, the launch of surface-to-air missiles against them. The Rafale operates something called the Spectra. The Spectra is the world's most advanced electronic warfare suite on board any fighter aircraft of the class of the Rafale. And it essentially, among many other functions, detects where an incoming missile is coming from. It actively jams missiles across frequencies to ensure that it can actually protect that particular aircraft or the aircraft if there are others flying in the area. It can be used to automatically deploy flares and chaff, which confuse incoming missiles as well. So Spectra performed, as I understand it, extremely well during Operation Sindoor. And these were planes which came under attack. One keeps saying, Shiv, and I think it's again important for our viewers to understand this. In the context of Operation Sindoor, the international border or the line of control between India and Pakistan didn't really matter, because the ranges at which Pakistan was attacking us using PL-15 missiles or surface-to-air missiles, it made the location essentially redundant. It didn't really matter whether you were physically over Pakistani airspace or Indian airspace, you were vulnerable on both sides. And I think the vulnerability of the Pakistanis was made most evident on the 9th and on the 10th, because it was on the 10th in the late afternoon, not least of all because of the role of the Rafales and the Scalp missiles, which hit all of these frontline bases of theirs, that they came to the ceasefire table. That's the overall context, and that is the aircraft, one among many, which performed this role, but the Rafale had a huge role. That's what the president is flying on now.
And, those details will probably never come out in full measure, Vishnu, because they're all war classified details of, which weapons were used, where to attack which bases. But I think the stories that you and I have heard from inside the Air Force are incredible. It's a story of phenomenal grit. These were frontline pilots flying in harm's way, even though they were not flying out of Indian airspace. They managed to execute some truly momentous things, operationally speaking.